Hello everyone, it's Mr. Barden here. I'm hoping this will be a relatively quick video. This is a follow-up to the last one I put out where my students and I in class were kind of putting together a game more or less from the ground up. I've got a few things I want to tweak and change with where we left off, and we've made a few changes since then in the class, and I'm just kind of getting everything up to date between the two different versions of in class and online, both for my students and anyone kind of following along at home as these come out. So that way, when we hop into the sound portion of this in the next class that I'm in and the next video that I put out, everything will be up to date for everyone. So the very first thing I'm going to do is replace these textures, these kind of purple ones. This is the easiest thing to do by far. Basically, if you don't recall from the last video, because it's been a little while since that's come out, I was like, ooh, that's a fun wall texture, but it was way bigger than I thought it was. So when it shrunk down, well, you can see what it looks like right now. So what I'm going to do is just hop right over to my images folder and open that up. And they're all broken up by what they are in the folders. That makes your life a lot easier. Highly, highly recommend anytime you do this. And we are going to essentially replace walltexture.png with a new file. So what I'm going to do is click on the folder I want it on, and then we are going to upload a file, and I just happen to have it right over there on the other monitor, so we'll just drag and drop it in, and we just need to make sure that the names match. So I'm going to copy the name of the first one, and then we're going to just delete it. We're going to just delete it. There we go. And then we're going to rename this to be exactly what the old one was. And now, when everything it replaces it with the new image because it's the same image name and extension in the same location. We just are pulling up a different resource. Another thing we did with this is if I hop in and find my walls code and find where we're making the walls right here, these walls right there, there they are. What we are doing, this is the right one, right? Yes. So the rotation doesn't really matter because this is a square image now, but I'm just going to leave it in there. I mean, we could take it out. It's not going to make much of a difference, but what we can do is just have them be slightly different. So the scale is currently set to 0.2, which actually isn't too bad, but what if instead we set it to a random number? Oop, if I could type. We'll say between 0.1 and 0.3 right there. And if I save that and rerun it, now the boxes will be of varying sizes. The idea being that they, vary from level to level. It's not just going to be the same amount of the same sized obstacles every single time. All right. So that is there. We ran into a few bugs as we were going where keys weren't appearing as keys or we couldn't quite connect with them. If they start happening here, we'll address that. But at the moment, things appear to be working for right now. One thing we did also that I like is when we're making the keys, I'm also just going to rotate them a little as they move along. It's kind of fun. So I should just be able to say all keys dot rotation speed. I'll just say 1. So that'll should rotate that. And yes, see, we're supposed to be able to set a property for all the sprites in a group like that, but it doesn't seem to like it for at least some of them. So I'm gonna think that some of the documentation needs to be updated for P5 play. and that's because it's just in active development. These things happen. So we're just kind of working with it. So now if I change it here, okay, is it not called rotation speed anymore? Oh, this is where we're now going to hop up to p5play.org. We're going to learn about a sprite. You see rotation speed. Why are you not rotation speeding? Oh, is it because of the collider? That's probably because of the collider. So sometimes the static colliders don't always like to work out. So I'm just testing out in class. We'll see if I have to come back and change this. But making this a kinematic, or you can just shorten it to K for kinematic, and that'll make it so you can change the sprite things, but other sprites can't affect the sprite's position. There we are. Now we've got rotating keys. Let's do that again just to make sure, because I only saw 2 keys. Yep, 1, 2, 3. That's the first part, and actually this randomly worked out just well enough that you see we've got a bit of an issue right underneath my face where you can't see it. So let's just hide my face. So right down here, where I'm normally sitting, the key is underneath the wall. And that's not inherently a bad thing, but it does make it a little bit more difficult to see the key, especially when you get something like over here where there's just a bunch of boxes all over each other. And there's actually a few different ways that we can change this. I'm going to show you the quickest and easiest and almost infuriatingly simple way. So we've got the function here that we call to make 3 keys. That's what's going to happen right here. If you don't recall, I'll tell you right now that within a function in JavaScript, everything gets executed in order, essentially from top to bottom. The order of the functions can be a little more nebulous, but within the functions, it goes in order. So we can just take make keys and make that the last thing we do, the last sprite here. So if I put it after that, then the keys are now going to spawn on top of everything. And we can see right here that they are. So if I try to navigate that, yeah, 2, 3 right there. And then it all changes, boom. So we can now clearly see all of the keys. Those are the main changes, play in, interaction wise that we've tweaked. There's one thing I need to play around with, and that's affecting the collider of the sprites. I need to see if I can make them bigger, because it seems like we've scaled up the sprite's image, but not the collision box. And I'm not sure exactly why or how, because it's supposed to scale up everything. But again, things are changing between the library and versions and just in real time. So it could be something that'll change in the future. We don't know. So I'm going to come back with a quick follow-up as a part of another video about that. But you may have noticed that as the player, I can kind of like scoot around some of these, but like the very middle of the sprite where you would expect the center of the sprite to be, that colliding point is still there. So yeah, that's that. Boom. The other thing we've done is just some graphic stuff. So I'm going to hop into my UI function, and we're going to change this up here and essentially make a player health bar. So we're graphically representing all of this instead of just saying, in the text. I mean, the text works. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a little bit boring. So I'm going to just comment out that line right there. And we will say this instead. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start off. I'm going to say push and pop. And we're going to put all of this inside of here. We're just making a little localized instance. That way things outside of here don't get affected. We're not using sprites for this. We're just going to use some HTML, just a rectangle, and we're going to change the size of the rectangle. It's going to be really, really simple right there. So if I say fill, let's make this one kind of green. So let's see, I'll do a little bit of red, a lot of green, and maybe a little bit of blue. And we'll put a rectangle here. So let's say I don't want it right on the very edge of the screen, so we'll scoot it a little in and a little down. So let's say 25 pixels in, 15 pixels down. We'll make it 300 wide and 30 tall. And we should see now when I refresh this, boom, that rectangle. And actually, that's not a bad one just to use as the health meter, but I actually want the health to be displayed as red. The background of everything will be the green. So I'm going to actually copy this right here and paste it like that. And then we're going to change this. So now we've got a lot of red, not a lot of green. Let's say 50, and I'll make it a little... Yeah, that'll work. Like that. And then we need to change this rectangle. So right now we've got the two rectangles put right on top of each other, but we want to be able to change how much, kind of like this kind of a thing going on with the red one. So to do that, we have to do a little bit of math, nothing crazy. That's why I put a space here, because I want to calculate all of this and then draw the rectangle. So if we just make a little more space, we're going to just define some stuff locally and just do all the calculation right here. So we are going to say let, I called it health bar in my class, and that's what we're going to do, equal a number. What this number will be is we're going to map up everything. So we map, we're going to say, okay, look at the player health. All right, I'm going to say, look at that. The player health normally has a range of 0 to 3. That's the next two arguments. We want to give it a new range of 0 to 300. Then that's the map function right there. You can give it another argument of 0, 1 that determines whether or not it'll let anything go outside of this range. But basically, all it does is it takes player health, whatever, and finds its position in its normal range and then scales it up to be the position in whatever range you give it right there. So we should just be able to hop down to our rectangle, and instead of making this one 300 wide, we will say we'll make it whatever health bar is wide. Another thing we did, you don't necessarily have to do, is I said no stroke for that line, just so that way the outline was for the green triangle. But now you can see that the player health is decreasing. If we want to go in and tweak that, we can, let's give our player a little more health. Let's say it'll take 5 shots to kill them. So we just need to go find where we define player health, probably right at the beginning of the sketch. Player health is 5. So now, same thing, but it should take 5. You notice it's not, that was hit a lot all at once, but it was smaller increments each time. It's a nice little visual indicator of what's going on. So that's there. We attempted one other thing in class that I'm going to talk about, and we'll get it started, but it wasn't working, even though it did work when I was testing it out beforehand. So we'll see if it does or doesn't, and we may have to come back to this. But let me just refresh this and see if we get a problematic seed. I mean, it is kind of annoying when things are overlapping with the health bar. But to change that, we could just, again, like before in setup or in draw, where we're doing displaying the UI, just copy that and place that at the very end of the draw function. And then now it's on top. All right, so what I'm looking for as I refresh this is just pretty much a bunch of the keys all kind of in a cluster of boxes, or the player kind of being trapped in by the boxes somewhere. It doesn't help there's just a ton of enemies at the moment. Okay, like this. So there's still collision data with a lot of these things here, and that's what's putting the sprite where it's located. But sometimes the keys get put in a box, or maybe there's just a ton of players or a ton of boxes just around the player, and it becomes effectively impossible to escape. What we thought would be kind of fun, and when I say we, I say me with a bunch of suggestions from my students, would be to have the player have some kind of power to kind of, I call it ghost mode, where you can essentially turn off the collision temporarily in order to travel through the other sprites around the screen in order to avoid getting, you know, trapped in the game's state. So that's what we're gonna start with right here. So there's a few ways we can do this, and though I'm gonna show you the way that I did. So I'm gonna do this right before we move the player in the draw function, just because it makes more sense to do all the fun collision stuff and then move the player. That just feels like it makes a little more sense to me. We run less of a collision problem that way. And I'm just going to do it with a simple conditional statement. So if I'm going to say if key is pressed. This way, if you want to map anything else to the keyboard in your draw function, you can just add another, what I'm going to do right here, if, let's say if key code is equal to a thing, we're going to do something. And you could just go down and make another one and say, if key code is equal to blah, 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 do this and that. And it can be whatever. But for now, I'm going to use 16, which is the shift key. So what I want to do is be able to press shift in order to turn off the collision data, basically let the sprite be able to travel through everything in what I call ghost mode. We'll balance it in a second after we get it all working. But if we are currently pressing the shift key, so at the moment we have to be holding down the shift key. I just realized what may have been causing this to have issues in class. So instead of it doing key is pressed, we'll have key is down, and we're going to look that one up in the reference, because I realize when you press the shift key and then start to move, the key code is changing, so this statement just gets ignored. So I'm going to hop into reference, and we're just going to look at key is down. And if I'm right, what this will do is it'll check if a specific key is currently pressed. And that's what we want. If we are pressing a key specifically, I'm just seeing if we can use, we can use the key code right there. So if key is down, key number 16, then we want to say player dot collider equals, there's a string, none. Else it's going to be the normal dynamic collider. Just like that. So at the moment, it can just freely turn on and off. On, off. That's what I was getting at. We don't necessarily want that. So the kind of default thing to do is give it what's called a cooldown, or once you use it, it's like, oh, it's too hot. I gotta let it cool down, and then you can use it again after a little bit of time. So there's a few different ways you can go about this. I'm gonna tie it to the frames of the game, and we'll move along from there. So what we can do is I'm just going to go to the top of my draw function and define it there, and then I'll move it to a more organized place later. But we can say let ghost mode equal false, and let ghost mode timer, let's give that a default value. Okay, so this ghost mode variable is just going to be a flag that if ghost mode is true, then we'll do that. And I'm just going to add that to this conditional. So if ghost mode is equal to true, and I forgot my ampersands, just like that, then we'll trigger it. And then if these aren't true, it just gets ignored. So now what we need to do is set the timer and have that go off to trigger this to be set to true. So I'll do this just right above, before, set the value before we check it. So let's say this will involve another conditional statement for sure. And let's think. So when we test it, we're going to want to use it, do other things. So let's say if ghost mode is equal to true, we're going to do all the stuff, and then when we let go of the key, we want to have that pop up. So let's just look through the key. Key is pressed. Key pressed. Key released. Key down. No, I don't think this will work. Yeah. But we want to be able to say, hey, this is currently doing its thing. So we'll do this. We'll just say ghost mode, and then GM, we'll call ghost mode if it's active equals false. It is a little disruptive. I'm just trying to think of ways to go about this. So what we'll do is in the conditional, we'll say that yes, the ghost mode is active here, and then if it's not, then we'll, if we're not using the power for whatever reason, we'll say ghost mode. If it's active, then it's not. All right. So then, if I'm trying to make something that's a little bit recursive back and forth, that's why it's hurting my brain just a little bit. So then, if ghost mode active is false, we're gonna do some stuff. If it's false, then we are going to check and see, okay, we'll set the timer and have all that go, and then we'll say, okay, once that timer's done, then we're good. Excuse me, all the rain that's been coming through has been wreaking havoc on my allergies. So we've got that there. So if it's false, then we will say that it wasn't called ghost mode, it was GM timer. It's going to equal the frame count. Hello, Bean. Get comfy. No, go on. I wasn't doing anything. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure they all enjoyed your butt. So, as I was saying, and Bean wanted to come up and give her wisdom on the matter, we're going to be setting this to be frame count. All right, cool. So on and so forth. This means that the Oh no, I want to swap that. So basically, we're going to be keeping this up as. Frankly, I'm thinking. So we've got the timer here. I want to have it move along with the frame count. Um, yes, that's why I put my hand here. And then I want it to be able to separate and have the frame count go when it's true. So GM timer will equal GM timer when we are using ghost mode. Like that. Hi. It's hard to type when you put your face in my keyboard. Yes, it is. So we have that there. Okay, so then normally we'll do that when it's true. When it's false, we'll set it to be that, and then we'll also nest and say if GM timer. This isn't right. But I'm trying to just build out the basic what I'm aiming for. If the ghost mode or if frame count, the amount of frames minus the ghost mode timer is greater than an amount. By default, we'll say this is running at 60 frames a second under normal circumstances. So 60 times 10, let's say you have to have a 10-second cooldown, would be 6,000 frames. After 6,000 frames, then and only then can we set ghost mode to true. So this is the ultimate goal. We just have to figure out I just have to remember a good way to make this statement be able to be true. So I'm just walking myself through the logic again. So by default, we aren't, it's not active. Then the ghost mode timer is going to equal the frame count. They're going to be moving together. Once, actually no, now these are fighting each other. So, let's just think. So if frame count minus that is there, then we can use ghost mode. Cool. When we're using ghost mode, it's going to equal that. So let's think about this a little bit differently. It's going to equal frame count. If GM time. So basically, I want to say when it's been a total of 10 seconds or 6,000 frames. So if we set this to equal frame count at this moment, then we can say if frame count, it's like right on the tip of my brain. So if we say GM timer. We're going to come back to this, mostly because Bean is just distracting me and rubbing up on every single thing. So this part, it needs more things to be worked out. You're being extremely annoying, Bean. So I'm just going to comment this portion out because it needs a little more thought on my end. Bye. Before we, bring that into the world. But you can kind of tell the idea. It's this close. I just need to sit down and write it all out when I haven't been, awake and doing things for 18 hours today. So this part will come back. So it's effectively in just about the same state as the classrooms. The next video that will come out will be one of either two things, either starting up the sound portion of this or getting the the ghost mode up and going. Whenever the ghost mode happens, it'll be, pretty quick, and we'll go from there. So other than that, again, what we've done, I've tweaked the order of the sprites here. They seem to be working pretty well. No bugs I was running into in class, so we didn't run into that. And then again, planned out the ghost mode, added a health bar. I'd like to work out a good way to do a graphic with the keys, but we'll figure that out as we go. That one's pretty self-explanatory, and now that the keys are on top of everything, they're a lot easier to see, so it may just get rid of this. We'll see. But yeah, it's moving along. So I'm going to end it here. I'll have all the normal stuff in the description, all that stuff, like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube things, and I will see you all the next time that I see you. Bye.